Hello and welcome. We begin with South Africa, where tensions are simmering once again over the docking of a Russian naval ship. South Africa's Ukrainian Association has expressed anger over a Russian naval ship being allowed to dock for several days at Cape Town harbour. They say the incident calls into question South Africa's purported neutral stance on the Russia-Ukraine conflict that has been raging for over 2 years now. The Ukrainian Association also said the vessel was docked in South Africa as Russian bombardments in Ukraine killed scores, including children. The Democratic Alliance, the former opposition party that is now a part of the coalition government with the African National Congress, condemned the incident as cosying up to Russia. It says the incident underlines the contradiction of President Ramaphosa's claims of non-alignment in the Russia-Ukraine conflict. Not just the DA, the docking of the Russian naval ship even took local authorities by surprise. The mayor of Cape Town told local media that he had been unaware of the port call and said it seems to have been under the radar. The naval ship, the Smolny, is a part of Russia's Baltic fleet. It was said to be on an unofficial visit to South Africa, during which the crew replenished water, fuel and food supplies and performed technical inspection. It had earlier made unofficial port calls in Cuba and Venezuela. Now, the Russian Consulate General in Cape Town said that the ship's command met with South African naval counterparts and hosted a reception aimed at strengthening bilateral ties. Amid outrage, the South African National Defence Force issued a statement saying that the Russian vessel docked for resupply purposes. It added that currently South African waters have 3 foreign vessels, including a Ukrainian vessel that was there for repairs. The Ukrainian Association of South Africa also condemned reports of South Africa welcoming a long-range Russian bomber at Africa's largest air show. According to reports, a Russia Tu-160 strategic bomber will be flown to Pretoria to participate in Africa Aerospace and Defence 2024 exhibition later this month. The Ukrainian Association says the Russian bomber is possibly the one responsible for killing Ukrainian children in Kharkiv. The African National Congress, which has most seats in the parliament, shares decades-long ties with Moscow, when the former USSR backed its struggle against apartheid. Both South Africa and Russia are also BRICS partners. The two countries have also been hosting joint military drills. South Africa has refused to criticize Russia's invasion of Ukraine. It had even abstained from a United Nations vote criticizing Moscow's aggression. Previously, the mysterious docking of Russian cargo ship Lady R in Simonstown in South Africa also sent shockwaves across the country and sparked massive international scrutiny. In December of 2022, US-sanctioned Russian cargo ship Lady R was reportedly loaded and unloaded under armed guard. The controversy over the docking snowballed as the vessel had shut down its marine tracking system. Speculation ran rife as international community questioned whether South Africa was secretly supporting Russia's invasion of Ukraine. 2 weeks later, the South African government said that the ship was offloading an old order of ammunition, but 6 shipping containers were reportedly loaded onto the ship before it left. This raised questions about the nature of the cargo. U.S. Ambassador to South Africa, Ruben Brigitte, claimed that the vessel was indeed loading weapons. The incident triggered a major economic and diplomatic fallout. Months of investigation by an independent panel, chaired by a judge, found no evidence to substantiate claims that weapons were loaded onto the Lady R. The probe only confirmed offloading of equipment. South African President Cyril Ramaphosa said the allegations leveled against the country affected its currency, economy, and standing in the world. Pretoria's non-committal stance on the Russia-Ukraine conflict already caused friction with one of its biggest political and trading partners, the United States. Now, these incidents and the latest docking of a Russian naval ship could further escalate tensions. Critics have been accusing South Africa of not maintaining a neutral stance, as it claims. So has the South African President Cyril Ramaphosa picked sides in the ongoing geopolitical conflict? Now, for more on this, we are being joined by Christopher Van Dome, a Senior Research Fellow at Chatham House. He joins us live from Johannesburg, South Africa. Thank you for being with us.
Thank you for having me on. Thank you.
Now, what are the strategic implications of the Russian naval ship, the Smolny, docking in Cape Town for South Africa's foreign policy, especially in the context of the Russia-Ukraine conflict?
Yeah, this is a really important moment. And obviously, as your piece has pointed out, it harks back to events at the end of 2022 with the docking of the Lady R and the incident then and the fallout that followed. And I think that when the Government of National Unity came to power in South Africa only a couple of months ago, there was an expectation that in terms of its foreign policy, while the new foreign minister, Ronald Lamola, his previous role at the Ministry of Justice had him working on the Israel-Gaza case, which is another area of contention in the international fora, there were expectations that perhaps South Africa's positioning on Russia-Ukraine would be less of a contentious issue, that this would be something that the South Africans would not be pursuing so forcefully. And also given the way in which there are suspicions around Russian support for various different parties within the election cycle itself, whether the ANC would be slightly falling out of love with Russia and some of those historic ties that were mentioned. So the fact that so early on in this new administration, another Russian ship has docked at the same naval base, and this time it isn't a civilian cargo ship, but it is actually a Russian naval training vessel. This is clearly a huge signal for South Africa. And I think that it's also one that, that the Russians are also quite good at putting upon South Africa. You mentioned that there's going to be a Russian bomber visiting the air show. At previous air shows and at previous state visits, there have been Russian aeroplanes visiting South Africa. And the truth about what was or was not on board those airplanes in terms of their armament was only discovered upon their arrival. So This is not necessarily a military relationship that's completely open all the time. And it's really important, I think, for Russia to demonstrate that it still has friends in the global south like South Africa.
Right. And how does the presence of this Russian naval ship in Cape Town align with South Africa's stated position of neutrality in the Russia-Ukraine war?
Yeah, it's becoming increasingly difficult for South Africa to maintain a narrative of neutrality. That doesn't necessarily mean that the government itself has taken one side or another. I think that what's really happening inside the government is that it's really struggling with how to maintain a position of neutrality. The Russia-Ukraine war has sucked in players from across the globe, many of whom far more powerful than South Africa is. And this is a really complicated terrain to navigate for South Africa. However, clearly having a Russian naval vessel present in the country makes it very, very difficult to maintain a narrative around neutrality. And speaking to diplomats in Pretoria, there's always been the suspicion that, while South Africa says that it's sitting on the fence, it's got both feet in the Russian garden. And this is clearly going to be used again to further point to the fact that, South Africa is saying one thing, but it's currently, it has been harboring a Russian naval vessel. And that makes it very, very difficult to claim a position of neutrality. I mean, likewise, it's very difficult to claim neutrality if it's got a Ukrainian vessel and it's just, sorry.
Yeah. Yes. And Christopher, what has been the reaction of the local and international communities to the docking of this Russian naval ship? And how might this affect South Africa's diplomatic relations?
Yeah, I think that this is being met with deep frustration. Your piece at the beginning outlined the impact that the Lady R incident had nearly 2 years ago now, and the fallout with the American ambassador that created. And I think that there was expectation amongst the international community that as a result of that, and given what's on the line in terms of South Africa's trading relationships, in particular with the United States, and the amount of diplomatic efforts that have been put into trying to smooth the relationship with the United States in the wake of that incident, I think that there was great hope that South Africa would, as I said earlier, be taking a far less prominent role. And the fact that it's hosting military assets from both sides of this conflict is clearly something that's going to really, really agitate people. And I think it really, as we've discussed, it calls into question the position of neutrality, whether or not South Africa can really maintain that position. And I think that the international community will be looking at this and saying, okay, well, we gave you the benefit of the doubt. That clearly hasn't played out. And while there are perhaps more amicable friends in Europe and the UK and those who are kind of a bit more understanding of South Africa's position, I think that the position of the US is hardening. And I think that there are really hardline voices in the US who are really trying to say, hey, look, we need to stop our friendship with South Africa, look at their behavior. That's been going on before this incident. And clearly this incident really is going to catalyze that view.
Christopher, thank you very much for being with us on First Post Africa and for your valued insights and analysis on the latest coming out of South Africa.
Thank you.
Across continents, one powerful news source.
Bringing you diverse perspectives on the issues that matter.
We go beyond the boundaries to give you that little extra about every sporting moment. So thank you for making Firstpost 5 million strong. We're counting on your support, and you can trust us to bring you the news unfiltered and unvarnished.
Climate change is on our doorstep. It's time for a revolution to take root. And it starts with 1.4 billion Indians. It starts with one tree for humanity, one tree for Mother Earth, one tree for our future. Project One Tree, a News 18 network initiative.
On the show today, the T20 World Cup bandwagon fans moved across to the West Indies. What can you expect from this?
Hello, I'm Alison Green, coming to you from Durban, South Africa. Today we have a special show.
Start with a report on India's shifting nuclear posture. The first time since India officially became a nuclear power.
Hello and welcome